I'm Jeremy White, and it is time to rebuild the defense again.
I'm Joe Marino, and the NFL Combine still matters.
I'm the big O Jerry Ostroski, and the Underwear Olympics happen this week in Indianapolis, Indiana. You're watching the Locked On Network, and this is Bill Squad.
Who's ready, Bills Mafia? It's the Bills Squad. Everything Buffalo Bills, every week. Breaking down the big hits and game-changing plays the way only the Locked On Podcast Network can. Nobody circles the wagons like the Buffalo Bills. So gear up and squad up. The Bills Squad show starts now.
Welcome in, Bills Mafia. It is another episode of the Bills Squad. Today's episode brought to you by FanDuel. Use your profit boost on an NBA future and get entered for your chance to win a trip to the NBA Finals. Play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. I'm Jeremy White, and Joe Marino and the big O, Jerry Ostroski, here as well. Twice weekly conversations. We have hit the offseason. I know the league year hasn't begun. Combine, though, that's the new season, guys. There's no way this is last season. This is the new year. And as we get to the end of February, we get closer and closer to legal tampering. Things will start to turn quickly. So happy kind of start of the new year. Before we get to that, I want to give a shout out to Team USA's hockey team. A gold medal performance. You know, we're rocking red, white, and blue like we do pretty much every show for the Buffalo Bills. But it was a heck of a performance, a heck of a game. Just, you know, what sports shows us it can be when you get best on best and you get that kind of atmosphere. It was incredible.
Oh, it was amazing. I was 9 years old the last time it happened, man. 1980, I was 9. I remember watching all of it. I remember it like it was yesterday, and then to see it happen again, it's a big deal. It was awesome for the country. It's awesome for the team and the program. And, I was happy to see it. It was awesome.
I was -6 when they won it last time. And, it's funny. I've really enjoyed my recent kind of peaked interest in hockey. Of course, the Sabres playing well, and I've gotten into that. And then, of course, now the U.S. wins the gold in the Olympics. And so it's been a fun stretch of being a hockey fan. After the last few times I try to ramp up, I learned pretty quickly it wasn't worth my time. And now we had a lot of fun. And I don't have a lot of like deep hockey understanding, but that goalie, what they say, he stood on his head or whatever, man.
Yeah.
That was an unbelievable performance. I thought that that was the key to victory, right? That guy stopped a lot of shots.
Connor Hellebuyck becomes a legend. The one thing about, I do this a lot, I don't know how often you guys do this, when a team wins after a long time of not winning, like Canada winning would not have been the same story as the U.S. winning. Canada wins all the time. I always think of the Bills, or the Sabres for that matter, but I think of teams that haven't won. Go back to last year's Masters, Rory wins it, and I think, how does this relate to the Buffalo Bills? Team USA wins for the first time in 46 years, and I think about just whatever, teams, franchises, organizations, in this case, a hockey country, finally getting the thing it's been working for decades and decades. Like, it's been so long in the making for Team USA to compete on that level and to finally finish it with the gold medal. Now you become legend status, Jerry. It's like they say, you can never take that away. Like, if Josh Allen ever gets the Bills all the way there and they surround him well enough and he raises that trophy, like, that is forever. And in sports, right, things are fleeting, teams are fleeting, players come and go, their careers end quickly, but like that picture, that really is immortality. And a select group of U.S. hockey players now kind of have that immortality that we crave for these Bills.
Right. Heroes get remembered, but legends never die. And just think about that from the top picture that you'll see over and over again in that Connor Hellebuyck save with the paddle as it's going in. I mean, we've seen, if you lived in Buffalo, if you're a Sabres fan, know about hockey, whatever it is, we've seen Hasek-like performances like that for years, right? I mean, that was what you expected. Hellebuyck he's had issues with pressure moments in the past, but yesterday was not one of those. And I think that wasn't just, Joe, and you used the correct term, it wasn't just standing on your head. I think really you could take that performance he had yesterday and put it in the top performances of all time of any sport at the moment. I mean, I think it was that good. And, say what you will. I mean, McKinnon was right. I mean, the team in red was the better team yesterday, but Hellebuyck was the better player. And that's why the United States won, period.
That's why they play the games, right? Like,
Yep.
who was better? We felt like the Bills were better than the Denver Broncos that day, but you got to ultimately win the games. That save Hellebuyck makes also shows that sometimes you got to get a little lucky. Sometimes you have to have a bounce go your way, you know, and ultimately you get a bounce, you get this or that. And think of the Seahawks this year. Did they win the Super Bowl only because of that 2-point conversion in the game against the Rams? No, but that's a bounce that went their way, and they had a home game as a result. Like, you know, you kind of chart the path backwards to a team that finds its way all the way to the mountaintop, and it can be a fun exercise. So,
yeah, I think that's a great talking point, Jeremy, is that I think every team that's won the whole thing, there's been a moment where it went their way. And they're sometimes pretty small. Like, I think about a play in that Denver loss that the Bills had in the divisional round that I don't think anyone talks about. Remember the Bills, they stopped Denver. They got the ball back. And of course, you now score, you win the game. You just need a field goal. Well, the Bills started that drive, at like the 8-yard line, right? Yeah. Deep. And it was a situation where, because Darnell Savage, as the jammer on the punt return team, didn't make a block that he was supposed to block, the Bills were not able to field that punt and advance it. If he makes that block, they might start that drive at the 30, maybe the 40. Yeah. There was a lot of space. And right there it is. That's the difference between having a chance to go play for an AFC championship and go to the Super Bowl. And obviously there's a lot of other things in the game too, but that little thing. And they can always point to something in just about every game.
Yeah. And for the Bills too, like we in WGR in Buffalo today, we had some callers call in, a Canadian fan saying, I feel like Canada knows what it's like to be a Bills fan because you feel like it was right there. How does McKinnon miss that super close shot, so much net to shoot at? And you end up thinking, we know we're better, and yet the other team is on the podium. Like, that is a feeling I think a lot of teams do get. So it's not unique to any one team. It can be kind of tough. Not to, rub salt in this wound, but I did see a story today, as we brought up the Denver game, that the competition committee is going to re-investigate and discuss what's a catch. Like, yeah, competition committee, they're not talking tush push. They're not talking offside or whatever, the onside kick. In meetings, the rules that govern what is or isn't a catch, it's come back into focus because of Brandon Cooks, Jaquan McMillan, what happened there. So you might see the NFL try to define this again. A quote from Rich McKay. I think the issue of catch, non-catch is that our technology is extraordinary. The ability to go frame by frame and slow things down is a great solution for a lot of things, presents challenges for others. You need to make sure your rules are as written. Don't just match up with what's on the field, but how it is looked at on replay. How about that? Like, these at the combine, they'll talk about a lot of things, not quite owners meetings, but it's another offseason for the Bills where it's like, oh yeah, should they change the rules because the Bills have right? It's such a bad break. We got to really investigate the rules. Like we know this life watching this football team. So anyway, what's a catch? They're going to continue to talk about it.
Is Sean McDermott still on the competition committee? Does he maintain that status through being fired as the head coach?
It would be funny if former coaches were on there. Actually, it might be more objective. Like, I actually don't even have a job, but I'll tell you what I think is good for the game, right? If I'm a fired coach, anyway. The underwear Olympics, gentlemen, the world descends on Indianapolis, and the Bills have their work to do, right? No doubt about that. The Bills have a lot of work to do. We're going to hear from Brandon Beane, the general manager, and from the head coach, Joe Brady, this week. Both will speak, and I'm not sure if this is exactly a time we get them laying out a blueprint for what they're going to do, what we're looking for them to say. But you do start to get a picture of what they're looking for based on, have you met with this player? Have you met with this player? And I think the expectation is linebackers and defensive line, they're part of the first group. And we're going to hear a lot of these players say, yeah, I met with the Bills. We're going to start to kind of put our draft board together, trying to figure out what they're looking for because, that's at the top of the wish list for a lot of people.
And one thing I am interested in hearing from Beane and Brady. Gosh, I have to remember like the sequencing of those names, what I'm supposed to say after Beane, right? It's used to be a different name. I'm excited to listen to them on Tuesday. They speak 2:00 Eastern time, and then the other one's 2:15. We haven't heard from Beane since the full staff has been assembled. We'll get an opportunity to get some comments there. Certainly Joe Brady as well. We'll get some comments there, but just getting kind of a feel for their vibe on the draft class. I know Beane will be asked about position groups and kind of what he thinks. And I think Beane in those settings has been a little bit candid, right? I think he's been honest about a lot. And so I'm curious to see like his perception of the talent, and then we'll get our magnifying glasses out there and try to connect all the dots we can. But I am curious to hear from them tomorrow afternoon and see what type of nuggets we can unpack.
I think obviously the biggest thing is defensively, just what type of players do they start talking to? What style of defensive lineman are we looking at? I think linebackers, we kind of got a pretty good inkling of what they're going to need, especially the outside speed rush type guys. But where do they want to go inside? I mean, with what they drafted last year, does it fit with what they're doing now? Are there guys that maybe they could package up and move? I mean, I think that's a big thing that I'm looking at is style of player, body types, builds and things like that. I still don't think, folks, if you're looking for the 335-pound run-stuffing interior guy, I still don't think you're going to get him. But it will be interesting to see who they're looking at.
What do you guys think? There's like a growing trend of GMs and head coaches like sitting out the combine, right? The Jacksonville guys, they're like, it's like a celebratory thing. It's like a point of pride. We're not going, it's make sure it's this broadcast. We're not going there. Do you see the benefit in that?
Well, can I give you one of the new age thinking points on that? It's that, I don't know, some teams, some coaches, GMs might subscribe to the idea that interviews will lie to you. Yeah. And like, I don't want to talk to these players. I don't want to fall in love with a guy's makeup. Like, you got to find guys with the right makeup. But I think there are some that think you can be swooned and you don't want to fall in love with a player because of his work ethic. If he doesn't fit, it can kind of lead you astray. So if that's Jacksonville's thinking, I don't think they'd be alone in that.
I agree 100% with that. I think these guys are so coached up in all the drills and everything they do. They're coached up in interviews as well. I mean, you look at all these top prospects, all these guys that are going to the combine, all of them have just spent the last 2 months at combine-specific facilities where they're getting prepared to go to these places. And they do have interview prep amongst the things they do besides speed work, agility work, strength work, and all of that. So I can see a lot of that, not wanting to get duped by hey, if you want to know about a player, spend the time, get in an airplane and fly to the campus, go straight to the strength coach's office. You'll get all you need to know. You don't need to interview these guys. Those strength coaches, they don't lie, because if you lie and you tell somebody that you got a player that's done all this and they're a super hard worker, then you draft them and they're a dud, those guys will never advance. They'll never get jobs. They're all trying to advance too, so they're not going to lie. And so if you want to know about somebody, go find a strength coach. But I agree. I mean, you can see a lot of stuff online. Maybe you don't want to tell, give away who you're looking at. Maybe that's part of it, espionage. I don't know. Some of these guys are weird like that. But there's a lot to that as far as, being duped on interviews because everybody's trained up.
Well, don't you feel like if you're coached up to do something, that'd be a great opportunity to assess how well they've prepared and took it seriously and applied that? Like, I don't see the downside in more information. Like, it sounds like they have an issue with how they internalize and process it, like more so than the participation component. I mean, I think all of it's still pretty relevant. And, if you're getting duped, that's on you. Like, that is part of the process is you do have area scouts and regional scouts that go and do all this digging, and you want to make sure that it all adds up. Right. And if not, then you consider your process and where there's some discrepancy and get the truth. But I don't know. Like, if you're in coach up to do something, let's see you do it. Let's see you do the stuff or come up with a better way to get him to crack. I think it's more of an internal thing you got to look at.
Curious to see what Keon's interview was like.
I think we saw some glimpses of it. I think they got duped by the personality. Get Bean out of the combine. Send him home. But then that's a problem with their process. If you couldn't watch Keon Coleman play football at Florida State, realize that the deficiencies are the deficiencies, and that's on you. That's on you. Is pretty clear to me.
Right.
Yeah, it's an interesting concept. Like, you're meeting with the media, these players are, and you want to, of course, be in shape. You want to, if you're going to run, you want to be running at your best speed. If you're going to do the bench, you want to make sure you're ready for the bench. Like, the NHL combine goes through this as well. Like, sometimes a guy can't do a single pull-up. And you're like, I guess he's not strong enough. Well, he's 18 and he scored 150 points last year. How many times is he going to have to do a pull-up, Like the 40. How often does the guy just run 40 yards? So, yeah, I think, Joe, what you're saying makes a lot of sense. You gotta apply it as information, but not as some sort of like end all be all. Right. One quick thing I want to mention about this combine, and about Bean and Brady both speaking is that this will be maybe the first time that Bean speaks with national media. He could be asked questions about the position groups by a lot of people and whatever. Like, hatchets have been buried. Everything's fine. It's going to be another conversation about receiver from people that ask him again. Like, this is going to be the conversation that kind of follows him around still until they address the position. So they've got needs on the defense, and he's got questions to answer about that and questions to answer about receivers. It'll be interesting because I'd imagine they're going to talk to a lot of those players. So I hope he's ready for receiver questions because, they're not about to go away.
One thing that Bean has said multiple times is that his number one priority is protecting Josh Allen. He says it all the time. I'm very interested to see how he talks about that, because I don't know that there's going to be a strong relationship between resource allocation and what he says his top priority is.
Yeah.
And so that's something I kind of hope that he gets pinned on a little bit on Tuesday, and we get some answers on that.
Unless he and Brady are willing to, maybe not publicly, but in their meetings, Joe, like you kind of said it. We went through it all year, Jerry, where he's getting blitzed all the time. Why is that? Because there's so little fear of what'll happen if you do. So if they want to protect Josh Allen, would they just be able to directly tie a line to, okay, here's how we're going to protect him. The line's going to continue to be good, but we're going to add some pieces to our game plan that might, get people off of him. Joe Brady flat out said that the screens have that role to protect Allen, to not get a hit. So, is there a meeting in the middle of, all right, not a screen, but also still protecting him, but you know what I'm getting.
Am I reading this correctly? You're saying the best way to protect the quarterback is to add more wide receivers.
Always.
Mike McDaniel completely agrees with you.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yes, he does.
It's the
All
scheme. Yeah, it's what he said. Scheme.
Yeah. But no, I agree with that. I mean, I think it's a big thing, and I'm interested to see what he does for protection as well, because he's got two of the best prospects in the league right now as free agents. Can't re-sign them both, probably. Do you re-sign one? Do you go to the draft early again like you did with Osiris Torrance? There's going to be a lot of questions.
Well, when we get back, we're going to really focus in on the defense, because Mike Clay, NFL.com, had a really revealing number about the Bills. It is good news. I think it's good news. They're 31st out of 32, but in a good way. We'll run through that and talk about the changes coming to this defense. Coming up next here on the Bill Squad Show. This episode of Bill Squad brought to you by TurboTax. Tax season doesn't have to take over your life. This year, TurboTax is making it easier than ever to just hand things off and move on with your day. With TurboTax full service, you can have your taxes done for you by a trusted local expert, start to finish, without the stress or guesswork. Instead of spending hours trying to figure out forms, you can meet with a local TurboTax expert in person or connect online. They handle everything from W-2s to self-employed forms and work to get you every deduction. You can upload your documents, go about your day, and get updates right in the TurboTax app. It's a huge time saver, gives real peace of mind knowing an expert is handling it. So for a limited time, you can have your taxes done by a local TurboTax expert for just $150 all in. If a TurboTax expert did not file for you last year, just file by February 28th. You have till the end of the week. So take your taxes off your plate. Get back to your life. Visit TurboTax.com/local to book your appointment today. Back here on the Bill Squad Show, Jeremy White, Joe Marino, and the Big O, Jerry Ostroski, celebrating the U.S. victory over Canada and also getting ready for the Combine, where sometimes it's about players running times, sometimes it's about NFL insiders getting into scuffles inside of a Starbucks. That was last year, and made for some good content. Hopefully we'll get some more. All right, so anyway, Mike Clay of NFL.com came up with a way to measure how much a team is locked into their defensive players going into next year. And our buddy here, Joe Marino, sent this in our group chat, and we're just going to use it, basically. So the number is, and the Bills are 31st out of 32 in returning snaps on defense. These are players under contract for 2026 and how many snaps they played in 2025. Green Bay has 88% of their defensive snaps returning via contract. The Bills are at 57%. Only the Bears have less. So this is a spot where I guess we'd say it this way, guys. If the defense was awesome, we'd be worried. But the defense was not awesome. It was kind of held together, and there's a scheme change. So this is something that for me, like Jim Leonhard gets as much of a blank canvas as you could ask for. I got a lot of snaps available. Joe, Jerry, like let's build a defense, right? Pick what you like, and then I just have so much room to work, and I think that's the timing of it looks great for the Bills, I think.
Totally that. I think that speaks to the timing. That's kind of my number one thought when I saw this come through, is that your opportunity to reset defensively in a lot of positions and kind of move on from some guys that were McDermott favorites, guys like Matt Milano, Tre'Davious White, Jordan Poyer, Jordan Phillips, these AJ Epinesa, it really creates a very natural transition opportunity to move away from some of those players and start fresh. And it also aligns with something else that I've been kind of a drum I've been banging here this offseason, is that regardless of the scheme change, the Bills are always going to have to find a lot of stuff on defense. So it's not like now you can sit here and say, oh my goodness, they're switching schemes and now you have to do all these things on defense. That was going to be the same if Sean McDermott was back. And so timing really lines up well here. And now it's about going out and finding the right players and putting it all together.
Really, I think the only anchor left in question mark is the Terrell Bernard contract, the redo last year. That's the one piece, right? That's the one thing. And if Bean can figure out a way to find somebody that wants an undersized, oft-injured middle linebacker.
Well, don't put it like that, Jerry. That's not helping the negotiation.
He's not selling, yeah.
That was my point. When I say if you get that done, he's an absolute wizard, right? But seriously, I mean, that's the only anchor that we have right now. Other than that, everything else is sitting pretty. And I think even the guys that they picked last year, especially these defensive linemen, I think they kind of translate pretty good to this kind of hybrid three-man front that they got rolling. Obviously, we got to get better and get outside linebackers, and I think that'll be really the biggest point of emphasis. And then, of course, you need to find another corner. But still, I think, last year's draft kind of translates as well. So other than one or two things, I agree. We look good there.
Well, the players leaving, again, we're talking the Bills having lots of snaps available. Joey Bosa and AJ Epinesa, Daquan Jones, Larry Ogunjobi, Phi Mathis, Jordan Phillips, Matt Milano, Shaq Thompson, Balin Spector, Trey White, Cam Lewis, Dane Jackson, Darius Slay is on this list, which is kind of funny. Jordan Poyer, Darnell Savage, DeMar Hamlin. Of those players, I kind of asked this question last week, guys, about Bosa, just as an idea. Who's most likely to return? I think Shaq Thompson wants to. Epinesa wants to. You have a group on here that would probably really be interested in returning. Trey White, right? But these are all small level deals, I feel like. Even though we say there are 43% of the snaps open, I have a hard time thinking anybody on this list, maybe outside of Thompson or Trey White, would be getting lots of snaps for them in a maybe break glass emergency. Who could come back?
You can make a case that none of them are coming back. Literally not a single one. And I think that's okay. I think what I hope to see happen is that Jim Leonhard finds his guys, right? Even a guy like Cam Lewis, who's his Cam Lewis? Bring him in here. I think there's a really strong case that not a single one of those players is retained. And I'm not necessarily sure it's a bad thing. Simultaneously, there's some good pillars to work with. Cole Bishop, he's scheme transcendent. I think Greg Rousseau is going to be fine. Jerry's excited about Ed Oliver, and I am too, but maybe not as much as Jerry. But the corner tandem, Hairston and Benford, that's intact. So there is a decent infrastructure, but there's a lot of fill-in-the-blank opportunities that get me excited. And I think Michael Hoyt will really benefit from the new style of defense. You're listening to him on Eric Wood's podcast over the weekend. Sounds like he's very optimistic for where he's going to be at the start of the season. So I think at the same time where we acknowledge there's a lot leaving, there's a lot that's not going to get back, there's still a decent amount of infrastructure in place to kind of fill in the blanks around.
The other thing that's got me excited is it should be an easy learn. Everybody who talks about this defense it's not – I'm not saying it's not complex, but it's not complex to the level of what we just had with McDermott where, we can't have a rookie step across the line. It's, you got to have at least 2 years before you get out there. I think it's one of those defenses where it's going to be a lot of see and react. What do rookies do really well? They're athletic and young. They see, they react, right? So I think this fits perfectly for what we got. I mean, a lot of our core players right now are younger when you let these other guys go. I think there's room for a guy like Trey White to come back at a league, at a vet minimum to help with depth and things like that. But other than that, I think it's going to be a definite youth movement on that side of the ball. And, maybe we'll see more players drafted. Maybe that's where we we really see the draft emphasize more defense again this season because of that. But no, I think it's a perfect moment for this switch to happen, I think, right now.
We get comments later in the show, but I got one I want to bring up here right away in our YouTube chat from TJ writes in, love the show, big fan. I'm excited for Jim Leonhard's defense. I understand it will take a couple years to get the players he needs for his scheme. And undoubtedly, I would agree to some point, like to get a complete version of what you might want, it might take more than one offseason. But I think what I want to say, is it fair? I want to place an expectation on it this year that it's going to be better. I feel like I want it to be better right away. Maybe not Seattle level, but I feel like it has to be okay to want it to be better right away. They changed off a good defensive coach because it wasn't good enough. And I got 43% of my defensive snaps available. I got some free agent signings I can make and some draft picks. I went full defense draft last year pretty much. I want to have an expectation for this defense rather than say, like, give it a couple of years.
I agree. And listening to Hoyt on that podcast, like he talked pretty confidently about how this style of scheme is going to be more simple on the players. And, he even was excited about Ed Oliver. He's like, Ed's going to be fine in this defense. He'll actually benefit because there'll probably be a bigger body next to him. Right. Like that's the big difference here. And, I think it's okay to be optimistic and have a level of expectation that it improves and that their structure will be better in terms of how the game is trending these days, where teams are coming out with bigger personnel. They're running the football. And, the Bills weren't really equipped to handle that. They wanted to, of course, take away explosives and the passing game, oftentimes at the expense of stopping the run, but they kind of missed the part where it's like, hey, you got to, in order to take away the explosives, you have to stop the run. So they'll throw it, right? It was like a philosophy that was jaded a little bit. So I think it's okay to have optimism and expectation for the Bills defense. And obviously as they make moves in the coming weeks, we'll get a bigger picture or clearer picture of it. But I don't think it's a situation where we're going to have to wait 2 years for them to have a defense that's one they can win with.
I agree with that. I don't think it's going to be something that you got to wait a long, long time. I think they've got most of the pieces right now. They just got to add some more to it, especially depth-wise. If we can't get this injury thing wrangled together and get that thing taken care of, we obviously need depth because we got enough guys out all the time. But if they can get that thing figured out, get some depth pieces, a couple more starters, and you're fine. I think the biggest thing, again, we talked about it. How does this group, how do they figure out how to rush the passer? How do they get talent in here to rush the passer? If they rush the passer, everything else will be fine. And that's what this defense is about, folks. It's about getting to the quarterback and disrupting the passing game. And, hopefully they're able to get that done and find that kind of outside linebacker rush end guy that fits and roll from there.
The class of rushers, Joe, are you still kind of like picking through it? But the thought is it can be pretty good. I've seen, every time I see a ranking of like this class and the guys that'll be at the combine, like who they're going to talk to, it kind of lines up pretty well with what they need. I've also seen good things said about safety, but I don't know. Cole Bishop was a premium pick at safety. I feel like I don't want to put another one on safety given the needs of this team at other important positions. Not to say like I don't value the other safety. I'd be surprised if they went like first round safety to match this up.
Yeah, I think for safety, it's all about finding that economical veteran to come in. PJ Locke's the name I keep going back to. There is a guy from Denver that's been like a third safety that started, decent amount of games, but played well. And you think about him in a bigger role. I mean, look at the Patriots. They signed Jalen Hawkins this past year, paired him with a rookie and Craig Woodson. And that was a group that obviously they were totally comfortable operating with. And Jalen Hawkins was exactly that type of player that I'm talking about. It's been like a third safety, got a chance to start. Now he's going to get decent money this year as a free agent. But I think the Bills will be able to find an economic answer next to Cole Bishop. And then you can use those high picks on those premium positions, including edge rusher. I fully expect the Bills to use a top 2-round pick on an edge rusher. And what's exciting about that is there's more options, right? Like when it was McDermott's defense, you knew they needed to have a certain body type, right? And a certain style, or else they're just not going to be on the board. This defense has room for a lot more skill sets. And, it's going to be cool to kind of see those guys implemented.
I agree. For as much as we like to complain about the quarterbacks that are coming out and the style of quarterbacks we see from college football nowadays, this defense, you should be excited about the defensive ends that college football is putting out. They're all those types of guys, undersized defensive ends that can roll, they can bend. Guys like our Mason Thomas, a dude like Derek Moore from Michigan. I mean, these are guys that are bendy. They can get those physical mismatches with the tackles on the outside, the big, tall guys. And there's a lot of those types of outside linebacker / D-end edge players nowadays out of college football. So I'm sure we'll be able to find somebody early that can help us out.
We got a quote here from Daniel Jeremiah of NFL Network, who said this today from the Combine. A lot of variance in wide receiver and edge stacks across different teams. So many similarly graded players with different skill sets. Flavor draft. I'm going to remember that term, flavor draft. And, you know, guys, whether we're talking receiver or edge, I do think the conversations kind of end up the same. You'd love to have Myles Garrett. You'd love to have Justin Jefferson. You'd love to have the guy that is the answer to all your prayers. But there are ways to do it with, all right, this skill set would fit really well here. And if we use this skill set here, like you can get to that point if you're unable to go out and like shoot for the biggest fish there is, like a Garrett or a Crosby.
Yeah, I think that those are words, a flavor draft at edge and receiver. That speaks really well to what the Bills are going to have in front of them in terms of opportunity, because I think there's a lot of primary needs, but the two most significant to me are receiver and edge rusher. And to know that there's a lot of variety that should open up a lot, like in terms of how you want to consider skill sets and implement them and how one decision will affect the next. I think that creates a lot of options. And I think that's a good spot to be given the amount of needs this team has and, not necessarily a ton of resources to fill them. So I'm excited to see the Bills draft a player that they never would have, over the last 9 years.
Well, I think also it also kind of goes along with a little bit of predictor with what Bean may do. I mean, everybody right away, it's like, go out and make it, trade for Max Crosby, trade for Justin Jefferson, trade. And it's like, you can get some free agent pieces that are going to help and maybe make a trade or two that's not one of those, give up 3 first-round pick trades to make it happen. And I think that you got to look at it that way, that with what the Bills need and with what's available and the fact that they could probably pick and choose, you got to pump the brakes a little bit on this, go out and make some crazy, trade, because you don't want to lose those assets, because there's a lot out there in the draft of what we need, and you need those assets to get them. So it's kind of where I keep going back and forth. Yes, you want free agents, but you got to really have that complementary piece from the draft to go with them. And, that's how this thing's going to work and get fixed, in my estimation.
The legal tampering period for the NFL begins March 9th. So that's 2 weeks. We're 2 weeks away from really starting players and visits and contract numbers. We're waiting on the Bills, by the way, for their restructures. Those have not happened yet. So I don't know if we're thinking that could mean things are going a certain direction or not. When we get back, before the show, Jerry started talking about the offensive line a little bit with us, just like McGovern and what happens with David Edwards and what the Bills might do there. Right. So, Jerry, I want to get your thoughts on this as like the countdown kind of begins. We'll see, as off seasons go, sometimes we all have to talk ourselves into something. So I want to get you on the offensive line when we return here on the Bill Squad Show. This episode of Bill Squad brought to you by FanDuel. Ever wanted to experience the NBA Finals live and in person? FanDuel's giving you the chance to turn that dream into reality with their NBA sweepstakes. Here's how it works. Use your profit boost on any NBA future, and you automatically will be entered for a shot to win an NBA Finals trip for 2. That's right. Flights, tickets, the whole experience. If you're already looking at the board and thinking about which team can make a deep run, this is the perfect time to lock it in. Futures this time of year, great. Whether it's picking a team to win the championship, grab the conference title, it adds that extra layer of excitement to every game down the stretch. And now, not only can your pick cash in, you could also go to the finals as a result. So visit FanDuel.com to get started. Use your profit boost on an NBA future and get entered for your chance to win a trip to the NBA Finals. Play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Back here on the Bill Squad Show, talking about turnover on defense, because the Bills have a lot of snaps vacated, and the league year starts in a few short days. The tampering period begins in 2 weeks. Of course, the combine underway from Indianapolis. Jeremy White, Joe Marino, and the Big O, Jerry Ostroski. So, Jerry, as we get 2 weeks away from legal tampering, so that means 2 weeks until another team can call Connor McGovern and David Edwards and say, hey, just so you know, we're thinking like 20 mil, right? You feel like the Bills are What should they do here? What should plan A be to try and get that situation to not happen, or just kind of have to, you have to sign up for it because these players earn the right to get these calls?
Well, first and foremost, we'd like to cross promote here on Locked On. And if you haven't had a chance, go to the Joe Marino Locked On Bill segments on the guard and center situations. He lays those out very well. But my opinion is that I think you have to think of a number in your head for Connor McGovern. I don't think the David Edwards thing is going to work, nor should it work. I think you've got enough options much, much cheaper at a guard spot that you can go to. I think the center is the one that you got to really look at. I mean, obviously, there's a relationship between him and Josh Allen, and of course, everything in Buffalo that's done is about Josh. So you'd like to keep the center for Josh Allen. I think if Connor McGovern was to move on, what is that? 3 centers that Josh has played under, or is it 4?
Yeah. I think it's 4.
Are we counting Russell Bodine as a rookie?
Yeah.
Mitch Morse came in 2019.
Right. So mainly 2 guys, Mitch Morse and Connor McGovern, and I think Josh would tell you he's been blessed to play with a couple of the best that have played because McGovern's done a very good job. While I wouldn't pay $20 million for it, he's done a good job. I think what we're going to have to wait and see is what happens with Tyler Linderbaum in Baltimore. He's going to set the market. That's where the market's set. And I think after he's the best center that's out there, after he agrees to his money, I think then McGovern comes in after that. That's my opinion. If you can get him for around 14 or 15 million a year, I think you have a situation like you did last year with our running back. You sign him and then figure out, what you're going to do at left guard. If not, you've probably, you have to look at veterans to come in to try to maybe battle with Van Pran Granger, because by no means you just hand it to Van Pran Granger. He's got to earn it. He hasn't done anything to earn it yet. So he's got to go through a preseason and earn it. You bring a vet in to battle with him or a rookie or both, and then figure out what you do at that left guard spot. And you know what? You can do a bunch of things with it. You can bring a free agent in, or you can do what you did at the right guard spot earlier and draft one early, second or third round. So we'll see how that goes.
Real quick, Joe, on the McGovern thing, I think sometimes it's fun to think if a team has had success doing a thing, do they think they can go back to that well? Because Connor McGovern they sign him to a modest deal, right? And they say he can play center. He played center in college at Penn State a little bit, but he hadn't played a lot in the pros. And he just becomes the center, and here we are a couple of years later, like, oh, he's great at that too. I wonder if they'll just feel like they can do that again. Like if that's a market inefficiency they feel like they can get a guy who hasn't played that spot and, coach him up, he'll be okay.
I know the center position is important to Brandon Beane. The first player they extended was Eric Wood, and going back to Carolina, they had Ryan Khalil, and he was a fixture, and they took care of him for a number of years. And then, of course, they signed Mitch Morse. That was a big move in 2019, and then they got ahead of Mitch Morse's departure by bringing in Connor McGovern. Jerry, I think you make a great point about Tyler Linderbaum. I think he's going to hit the market, and he's going to get a ton of money. I think he's going to get north of $20 million a season, which would completely reset the center market once again. Now, I don't think Connor McGovern's going to challenge for that type of money, but I think he's going to get a lot. And I think here's where it gets tricky. I don't think Connor McGovern's going to sign before the tampering period, right? I think Connor McGovern's going to want to listen to offers and see what's out there for him. And I think he's going to find a lot, right? I think there's a lot of need across the league at the center position. Looking at teams like the Patriots, the Rams, maybe. The Bills have a needed center. The Ravens, I mentioned. The Giants could use a center. Lions are another team.
They tried to bring back Frank Ragnow. They're so down.
McGovern's going to find what he's looking for.
Yeah.
And so are the Bills, maybe his first choice is to stay in Buffalo, but it's going to have to be, I don't think he's going to take less. I think he's made that clear. I listened to him on the Cover One podcast last year talk about, it's a business. I'd love to stay in Buffalo, but I took less to come here and originally in free agency. And, this is that moment for him as a guy he's made $28 million in his NFL career, and that's a ton of money, right? But this is a different type of situation where he's probably going to make that in 2 seasons on his next deal. Maybe probably a lot more. And this is his big swing, right? This is his big chance. I think money's going to be the driving force behind McGovern's decision. And if the Bills aren't going to be, close to the high bidder, I think they're going to get left in the dust, and the Bills will be looking for a center for Josh Allen. I will say that between Edwards and McGovern, I think McGovern would be the player I would want back if it was one or the other. And that's not against Edwards.
Right.
Good player. It's just he plays left guard.
But I will say this about Edwards, and I got a little bit more about McGovern. What I think about Edwards is he fit really well here. he's got that kind of almost I would buyer beware on that. I don't know how he fits in with he's going to have to go to a specific team that does what he does well. I don't think this is just plug and play anywhere. Okay, I think does Edwards go to more of a heck, he can go back to LA if LA needs somebody. Like, that's the type of thing. It's that outside zone pass blocking. I don't know if he's like a pure power guy, whatever. I think he's got to be specific. And so buyer beware on that, because you almost pay too much and you get a guy that doesn't play as well because he's not in the right scheme. McGovern, coming out of high school, Jeremy, was #1 center in the country.
Yeah.
So he had that pedigree. He was drafted in Dallas to be center, and then of course he had to play guard. If I'm going to spend my money, it's McGovern, but I'm going to go a little one step further. If I've got that money sitting there and I got $20 million and I have a chance to buy McGovern or Linderbaum, I'm going with Linderbaum.
Oh,
Linderbaum's
now you're shooting for the moon, man.
Yeah,
now you're going crazy.
if I got that kind of money and I'm going to spend that kind of money, I can get either of them for that price. Tyler Linderbaum is a dog. Like,
yeah, but
he's better than Creed gets a lot of love. He's better than Creed Humphrey too. He's the best in the league, I think.
Well, let me play the role of someone that, I've heard this before. I was already #1 in the league in the offensive line. Like, why do I need to pay that guy just to stay on top? Is it do you reset the age curve there? I mean, like, paying big money for a guy. I don't know how old he is. How old is Tyler Linderbaum? It's his first big contract, right? He's probably like 26.
26, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, he's 25. Okay, he'll turn 26 in 6 weeks. I mean, a center can have a long career. So, like, if you gave him a 5-year deal, like, you'd expect him to play all 5 and then probably get another deal on top of that. So, I'm not against any of these ideas. The Bills have shown with a great offensive line they can be a great offense. And, in the short term, I am looking for them to lean and to be carried by this offense in the 2026 season. So a proven commodity at any spot to me seems like a good idea.
I think the difference there, and I love this conversation, Linderbaum is probably going to go $20 million a season. I think he'll probably go 4 years, $80 million. Okay. I think Connor McGovern goes 3 years, 45. So I think you right at about 15 per, and then you get the Linderbaum at 20 per. You're obviously 4-ish years younger and better, right? You're better. That's interesting, right? Like, are you willing to kind of go a little bit more than you wanted to for the better player that's younger? It's kind of compelling, right? I hadn't really considered the reality of a Tyler Linderbaum, but if you're going to pay McGovern, all right. But don't you worry about the bidding on these guys? Like, you have these teams, Patriots, Lions, Rams,
right.
Bills, Ravens, all contending teams needing centers, not to mention the teams that aren't very good that are going to pay, crazy money. Got to pay the bad team tax. That could make these numbers even higher than we're kind of estimating right now.
Well, I think it's the same thing you talked about with the Bills. It's the same thing with McGovern. Like, you talked about McGovern not signing in the tampering period, right? He wants to see what's out there. Bills ain't going to open their mouth either. They're going to stay shut because everybody in the league knows the cap situation the Bills are in. They know all they have to do to smoke out the deal is give a little bit extra. I mean, they understand this. So I think Brandon Beane will be quiet too and see what's out there. But if he can get it done, I would try to get McGovern back. And then I might even draft the guy in the second or third round to go be the left guard. And if he was a dud, then okay, we've got Alec Anderson to compete with Anderson over. But there's guys like Chase Bisatti at Texas A&M that I love because he's a freaking dog. He gets after it. There's dudes like that out there. And I think you can get guys to play guard and do what Osiris did and be just fine. And you got him between Dawkins, you got him between now McGovern, 2 big vets. Let's roll with it. The only thing that scares me though, Joe, is a rookie next to Dion. That's the thing that scares me is a rookie next to Dion.
Is that for what reason? Just because Dion is so unorthodox? Like, why would you say that?
He's unorthodox, and if you watched his relationship with David Edwards, it was very much a one-sided relationship.
What we doing on this play?
Yeah. Hey man, what are we doing on this one? Like, David was very vocal in telling Dion what to do. If you watch it now, if a rookie next to McGovern, I'm not too stressed out about it. But and they would make that work too. I don't think that's a deal breaker, but that is one thing that makes me a little bit nerved up is a rookie next to Dion.
Pat Meyer, the Bills' new offensive line coach, has had a ton of experience lately with Steelers drafting offensive linemen, and they start right away. Broderick Jones, Troy Fatanu, both their tackles, Mason McCormick, Zach Frazier, center guard. Like, this has been what he's done for the last 3 years in Pittsburgh. So onboarding rookies, something he's done quite a bit of, and he might get to do it again this year in Buffalo.
Right.
The Bill Squad show, combine underway. There will be news that comes this week. The Bills have restructures to announce at some point, waiting on those. Josh Allen, Deion Dawkins, Spencer Brown, what the plan is with Dawson Knox, also something to be considered, because 2 weeks from today, legal tampering, and that's when you can start talking to other teams. If you got a comment or question you want to throw our way, fire it off in the chat right now, in the YouTube chat, and we will get to some of those. We've got some start along the way, and we'll get to those next. Coming up here on the Bill Squad show. Jeremy White, Joe Marino, and the Big O, Jerry Ostroski, here on the Bill Squad show. A couple of NFL news and notes, guys, I want to mention very quickly. Kyle Pitts is getting the franchise tag. It looks like Pitts and George Pickens will get it, and I see the Cowboys already talking about getting to work on a deal for Pickens. Last year, we got 2 guys in the franchise tag. So far this year, I think it's 2. It's going to be Pitts and Pickens, and that's it. Pitts, the tight end franchise tag is easy. It's not that expensive. The position has not yet exploded the way other markets have. There might be an explanation for that. It just kind of hasn't done it at the top yet. So the franchise tag's not that big of a deal. So, one more year of everyone in their fantasy leagues insisting Kyle Pitts is finally going to put up monster numbers. Maybe this is the year it happens.
I think we got to put some respect on Kyle Pitts. He had a great season.
He had a very good year.
I think
he didn't score touchdowns, though. Did he have 2?
Yeah, Julio Jones didn't score touchdowns either. Remember that? That was a big thing with him.
I could be wrong. Let me double check how many touchdowns Kyle Pitts had. I thought the number he had 5. Okay.
I think Kyle Pitts has been historically one of the most productive tight ends in the first 5 years of their career. There's just this expectation because he was such a high pick, and he went ahead Chase and who's the other guy? Jalen Waddle that he went ahead of. And so there's always been this crazy expectation, but I think him with Stefanski in Atlanta is going to be really good.
We'll see.
We'll see. Pitt's touchdowns by year: 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
6 next year. My
7 year after.
Hey, my daughter who's in kindergarten, this is what she's doing. Patterns. I was ready for this one. I've seen this.
Yeah. 6. All right, we'll get some questions.
Math I can handle.
All right. Here's a question on the offensive line. Would it work to move Deion to left guard? I don't think you're doing that now, but is Jerry, you think Deion's career eventually means a move inside at some point?
Deion is a left tackle. He will play left tackle, and when he's done playing football, he will still be a left tackle. Ask Jason Peters how that whole thing, the left guard, worked out for him. He went there for about 3 days and was like, nope, and he went back outside. Deion's a left tackle. Deion's got good football left in him. He'll be fine. No, I would not move him to guard.
Don't you remember that with Brandon Albert? Didn't he do that? It was tackle. Everybody said guard, and I think he moved him to guard and retired.
Who's that?
Brandon Albert. He was with
Yeah.
They did.
Here's a very early question. The Bills are drafting 26. Who do you anticipate would be the best pick available at 26? That's from Richard. It's very early. This is not there's no binding agreements here. You can just shout a name, and you have the right to change this over the next 2 months. Got a guy right now?
The more I see this, R. Mason Taylor from Oklahoma, man, he feels like exactly
R. Mason Thomas.
R. Mason Thomas.
Yeah.
Looks like a guy that the Bills can use off the edge. That feels like that's kind of my guy right now.
Saw this the other day. There's some interesting stuff about that too, Joe, and maybe something you can look at. But, kind of what Brett Venables does with his defense down in Oklahoma and the variable fronts and stuff kind of matches a little bit, and personnel-wise matches what Leonhard does defensively. That's for instance, they've got a linebacker who's 6'5", 245, started out as a safety. Okay. And now he plays that kind of hybrid. They call it the cheetah position at OU. It's a safety and an outside linebacker. Name's Kendall Daniels. And that's what I'm excited about. I see guys like that, people in the NFL going, where's this guy fit? And I'm like, he fits at Orchard Park. Send him to Buffalo. He would be a dog up there. That's what I'm excited about.
Don't forget, we got Jay Valai on staff as a corners coach, was the co-defensive coordinator at Oklahoma. Don't need to interview our Mason Thomas, right? We already got all the goods. This guy's been around him every day for the last several years.
That is
Okay,
correct.
so our Mason Thomas was yours, Jerry. Yours was
mine is hopefully Vega Leon from Penn State, the guard.
Man.
If
On
that
brand.
dude's at 26, I'm drafting him. Like, there's not even a wait.
Pennsylvania guard, Jerry.
There's no wait. The card is already written and turned in. The dude's a freak show, man. He started football late. His upside's amazing. And then the other thing is he's a good person. So I want
Nice.
Vega.
All right. I'll stay on brand. 26, my favorite idea right now, if you're staying at 26, is Casey Concepcion, wide receiver, Texas A&M. Like him a lot, and he's got some drops issues. Like, all right, work on that. He gets open all the time. And in fact, we had Damian Parson on of Locked On NFL Draft last week, Joe, right? Damian's a good guy, runs, if you're following him or if you're following the Locked On NFL Draft podcast, Damian does that. I know player comps can be unfair. I know player comps can be misleading, but he made a player comp for Casey Concepcion that was like, speak it into my veins. It was Emmanuel Sanders. And like, that's the kind of receiver I want Josh Allen to have again. I want that guy. I want Emmanuel Sanders cloned and remade so they can have a young Sanders. That's what I want. So if he's close to that skill set, like at 26, where do I sign? I'll run to the podium for Casey Concepcion. Again, everything can be changed in the next 2 months. We'll see. Could be a lot of receivers going. Could be a lot of edges going. 6 in the first round for whatever. It's gonna be a fun draft.
It is.
That's our answer.
There's a lot of second, third, fourth, fifth round talent, I think, in this draft. If you can get extra picks in those middle rounds, I think this year is very advantageous to do so.
A couple more comments here. See what else we've got here from our listeners, our viewers, our fans. Josh Allen going to his fourth center. If McGovern leaves, doesn't seem like the smartest play from Bean. Just an opinion here about McGovern leaving. We got into that a little bit. Wyatt Teller, by the way, on the interior. If you like somebody from the Browns, they're all available, right?
Yeah, every one of them I think is available.
Yeah, I think Wyatt Teller is exactly the type of solution the Bills should be thinking about for guard, where you get like a 1-year fill-in type player, where that could be where Wyatt Teller is, right? He's going to turn 31 this year. He's had injuries the last 2 years. It kind of took away from his play, instability with that Cleveland offense. Come to Buffalo, play between Dawkins and hope maybe McGovern, and maybe parlay that into a one more big deal for his career. But I think those are the types of options that make a lot of sense for the guard.
Joe, what's your opinion of Risner?
It's weird. It's Dalton Risner. So
Risner.
For those who may not familiar with him, was a draft pick by the Broncos, started his first 4 seasons, and then did he go to Minnesota and then Cincy this past year, if I'm not mistaken. I'm a little concerned that he was like an every game starter for 4 years for one team, and then he's kind of fallen off, and he was a late arrival to Minnesota. There was some, I think there was some coming to terms with maybe the way that the league perceived his value, and he had to settle, and then he comes in. He seems like every time he's on the field, he plays pretty well. That's a reasonable fill-in player that I don't think will cost a lot, that has experience and some youth and upside. It's interesting to me. I think him and Anderson could compete for a left guard. I think I'd be okay with that.
Well, just knowing how they, and if they go to the model that it used to be as far as big physical guards, I know he fits that role. I'm just trying to piece together body types with,
if you think about the Pete Carmichael, Joe Brady, Sean Payton archetype at guard, it's big dudes like Ben Grubbs and Carl Nicks and Cesar Ruiz, and they've invested high picks on those types of guys. I think they like the big physical guards and athleticism at tackle and length at tackle. Not necessarily length. I don't think they're super committed there, but like athleticism, movement skills, and then football IQ at center, I think is kind of what matters to them.
Because I was kicking around the idea of Falale too, but he might be a little bit too immobile.
Yeah, I don't know about
that.
He's a little rough. He's a little rough,
but he is huge. He's huge.
He is.
Can I throw one more big name in the free agent bucket before we get off for the day, which is Cam Jordan? I think for Cam Jordan, 15 years with the Saints, all-time leader in games played, set for free agency, 10.5 sacks last season. He told TMZ Sports there could be a bright future for the team after Tyler Shoug's rookie season, but he might not be back. He says, if I was 26, I'd be asking for top dollar. Things I've never asked for is top dollar. All I've ever asked is to be valued. I don't know what that number is. 10.5 sacks with the Saints last year.
Cam Jordan, a couple of weeks ago, had this to say about Josh Allen. Quote, Josh Allen, if I thought anything, I thought this was the year. All these guys are out. It's his time, and he proved what I thought about him. He plays excellent during the season. He shows up. He's Superman, but at the same time, he can't win those big games. Kick rocks, Cam Jordan. Kick rocks.
I agree.
I love that guy, man. And then he said that. You're not watching the tape, brother. You're not watching the tape.
I'm tired of our roster looking like, the Backstreet Boys comeback tour over in one of those what do they call them, residencies in Vegas. That's what I feel like sometimes our roster looks like, the Backstreet Boys reunion.
Lou writes in, I'm all set on 1-year super veteran rentals at defensive end. Oh, I bet there's at least one. It might not be a big rental in Cam Jordan, but I prepare yourself for some super veterans on this team.
Khalil Mack?
Ooh. The Mac is back in Buffalo.
He's old. He's old, Jerry. He's old.
Mm-hmm.
I know, but that's where he started, and that's where he's ended. Thinking about the ad campaign that they could come up with.
That'd be really good. Shameless tease. Wednesdays, Locked On Bills will feature me discussing free agent edge rushers. So that's coming.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Very good. Meanwhile, we'll be back on Thursday, and by then we'll hear from the coach and the GM, maybe get some, some juicy rumors, maybe a restructure, maybe a cap, casualty or two.
Jeremy's antsy. You could tell he wants to move.
Just go ahead and cut Curtis Samuel already. We all know you're going to do it. Just give me my roster spot.
Yeah.
Let's have it. Let's have it. What are we waiting
Chomping
for?
at the bit, man.
What are we waiting for? Curtis Samuel. Let's move on.
Taylor Rapp, get him out.
That's right.
What are we waiting for? Like Mickey and Rocky, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just do it. Just do it. I need my space on that receiver room so I can further get to work. All right. We're back Thursday with another show. Of course, thanks for tuning in. Give us a like and a subscribe on YouTube if you're, of course, catching us on the podcast. Thanks for doing that. Subscribe wherever you get the show, and the Locked On Bills channel where Joe's always doing the work. He's got tons of content coming out with the dailies. So make yourself an everyday listener with Joe on the Locked On Bills channel as well. And we will talk to you Thursday. Until then, go Bills.
Go Bills.
Much love. Go Bills.